What's up, bros and hoes, whatever floats your goat? It's your boy Relentless, and welcome to yet another Division build video. And in this video, we're going to be discussing quite a few things. One being my previous video, and thank you so much for those that commented on it and gave me your feedback, much appreciated. That it came up as far as the FAMAS. That the FAMAS would have worked better because of the 15% additional damage, provided that you had no accuracy or stability mods on the weapon. So first, before we get into the build that I call the Frankenstein, because it's just a mixed match of, a few different things, and some things most people wouldn't think of, more or less putting together because they're more interested in a 4-piece of this and 2 high ends of this, and, this is better or this is better, but just to continue in the tradition of like my last video, and as far as build diversity and depending on your playstyle and how you like to play the game, I just want to not be biased and just do what everybody else is doing, but think outside the box and outside the norm and bring you something and all things that I think are viable. Now, yeah, of course there are better things, and that debate can be going on and on and on as far as, well, if you use this, accompany with this, then that'll be better than such and such builds, or this build that I saw on YouTube, it looks like it'd be more viable, which is all these things might be true, but the point is that all things are diverse. But when it comes to the FAMAS, if you can control the FAMAS, then it is a decent weapon. But from long range, such as, like, for instance, let's give an example. If you're running 4-piece Predator's Mark and trying to put a bleed on someone that's running away because they're manhunt, and let's say they're a good half a block away, with the stability problems that, are with the FAMAS, it's hard to land those shots to cause that bleed without them, just dipping around a corner and you not being able to get them shots off, because it is, kind of tricky to handle. Unless you run stability mods on it, or 2-piece striker for that stability for it. Now, with 2-piece striker that works, but then you're using 2-piece striker when something else, besides getting stability, can come in more handy and inflict more damage. So, with this build, the Frankenstein, I'm using 3 Predator's Mark, Savage Glove, Specialized Backpack, and the infamous Barrett's chest piece. And my condolences to all those out there that are still continually grinding Lexington Event Center to get this beast of a chest piece that's becoming more or less the norm, such as the Specialized Backpack is becoming the norm for most builds when it involves the DPS, or even Tactician's builds when you use 4-piece tac and Specialized, that gives you the nice extra skill power boost. But like I was saying a while ago, let's dive into this FAMAS theory. As you can see, I have 5302 firearms, and you really don't even need that many firearms. Around 5,000 is great. If you want to stack on more, I can stack on even more and push my DPS way up there, and still be around 400k toughness, but do not focus on your DPS. It's a number. Many things come into factors that can deflate it. So don't base and mod your weapons based on what your DPS says it does. That just means damage per second, and that more or less relates to how fast you can shoot, and also stacking on accuracy mods, and the more headshot damage also can inflate that number. But instead, look at your character sheet on actual the base damage that your gun is actually doing. In this case, without uncomplicated, is 16.4. With uncomplicated, that puts it at 18.6. And on this particular FAMAS, I have destructive, unforgiving, and then uncomplicated. And the magazine slots, I have 101% magazine size, 4% crit hit damage, and 3% crit hit chance. This is the scope that I was talking about in my last video, and also the one before that I couldn't find, and actually found another. And it's one of the best scopes out there for an AR. You can find one. It does look kind of a little funky because it looks like it should be on a marksman rifle, but you get a nice chunk of 17.5% headshot damage, and you get the crit hit chance and the crit hit damage, those are the trinity of what you want to find on large optics, such as the same as my muzzle right below it, the Omegle Rifle Suppressor, and this is what you should be looking out for. 17.5% headshot damage. So just between those two pieces, I'm getting more headshot damage than a sentry, because a sentry only gives you 10% headshot damage. So these combined, I'm getting 35% headshot damage. And that, I mean, that's great if you can land those headshots. And also, on a suppressor, you want the headshot damage, the crit hit chance, and the crit hit damage. That is a triple threat for all things muzzles as well. And on my underbarrel, crit hit damage, reload speed, and unfortunately, yeah, that 2.5% stability, which equates to roughly about 250 to 300 less damage being taken away from the FAMAS's uncomplicated talent. Now, with all that being said, and we'll just give it the benefit of the doubt, we'll round it up to 2,500 to make that 18.9k base damage. Now let's go to my bay, the one I prefer using, the one that people sleep on, the lightweight M4. Without having an uncomplicated talent, I'm still putting out more damage than the FAMAS is at 19.3k base damage. Not by much, but I still edge it out in base damage. And my RPM is 850, and on a FAMAS, its base RPM is 900. So, by just adding a rate of fire magazine on there, you get right up there next to it. So the rate of fire is insequential when it comes to if you can meet it. And of course, you can do the same thing for the FAMAS, but with its, left to right, swerving all over the place when you laying down the hammer on someone, the instability that it has, if you can handle it, go by all means. But for the most part, you need two-piece strikers. So that way you don't have to sub in for stability mods of any sorts on a mods for that weapon, so that way it doesn't further reduce that uncomplicated talent. But on this M4, I have brutal, responsive, and fierce. In the magazines, I have 101.5% magazine size, 3% crit hit chance, 4.8% rate of fire, 7.5% crit hit chance, 5.5% headshot damage, and 3% crit hit headshot damage. So this optics and this muzzle is usually on my M4 more or less, and then the ones that are on my FAMAS up here, the VX1 scope and the Migo suppressor, is usually on my M4, and vice versa, because I prefer the M4 over the FAMAS, and we all know this. But moving on, secondary, I have an MP7, 15.4k base with vicious, brutal, and responsive. Magazine size, I have 101% magazine size, 2.5% crit hit chance, 4.7% rate of fire, 17% crit hit damage, headshot damage, and accuracy on my optics, and on my muzzle, crit hit chance, headshot damage, and critical hit damage. And my underbarrel, 18% critical hit damage, and 5% reload speed and stability. Now moving on to the gear, you automatically get a 10% reload speed on Predator's Mark, as well as you get a base plus 8% assault rifle damage and SMG damage. So all those factored in, plus baking in the 5% of damage increase that I get for only having one skill on cooldown. If I have no skill on cooldown, I get a 10% skill power increased. And for 2 skills on cooldown, I get a 10% armor increase. I have 1151 armor, 10% exotic damage resilience, and as always, and I've mentioned before, you would prefer, and if possible, you would want ammo capacity on your chest piece and your backpack if you're able to get it there. Because such as like running a 4-piece Alpha Bridge and having to use the same weapon types, you run out of ammo pretty quickly, and so that way you don't have to have 6 different weapons in your bag, so that way you keep switching them out between your ARs, your SMGs, and your LMGs, just so you can have bullets to fight off rogues or to defend yourself while you're rogue yourself against other agents. But whatever the case may be, as much ammo as possible that you can carry is always the best way to go. And then my mod slots, 261 stamina, 271 armor, and another 262 stamina, and another 272 armor. Moving on to my mask, I have a good chunk of stamina coming from it at 1236, 4% crit hit chance, and burn resistance. Now the idea mask that I would go for would be, instead of crit hit chance here, for skill power. And instead of minor attributes, it being burn resistance, I'd rather have enemy armor damage. I have another mask down here that has a significant lower of stamina, but it does have skill power and, enemy armor damage. Now, if the main stat was just as high as my other one, which is 1236, then this would be a much better option, except for the fact of if you look at the armor values that are based and baked into the rolls themselves. This one down at the bottom, even though it has 2 out of the 3, that would be best, it has a really low baked in armor roll on it. Such as this one, the max you can get on a mask or gloves is 1001. And now 866 is far and from 1001, and versus the other, it's only 49 off from its max armor possible. And in my mod slot, I have 256 firearms and 270 armor. On my knee pads, I have 1210 stamina, 1160 armor, that 11% enemy armor damage, 48% increased kill XP, and 29% bleed resistance. In my mod slots, I have 260 firearms, 271 armor. And in my performance slot, I have 6% first aid self-heal. Moving on to my backpack, specialized backpack, good stamina roll, 917 armor, and 50% ammo capacity. And just like on all DPS builds, the cookie cutter main go-to is the specialized backpack, because when using a specialized backpack and you're a DPS build and primarily dishing out more damage and you're running with a squad or a teammate, then you're going to be low on the skill power side unless you're more of a balanced build. So that way, if you use a specialized backpack, you don't have to spec into electronics whatsoever. You can primarily focus on stamina and firearms, and then the specialized backpack comes in handy because it adds 200% of your firearms and stamina to skill power. So basically that comes equivalent to around 20k skill power just coming from this backpack. And in the mod slots, I have another 261 stamina and 271 armor, 6% first aid self-heal, and 5.5% first aid self-heal. Now moving on to the gloves. Savage gloves, nice baked in armor roll, 973, not too far off from its main stat of 101. 1216 firearms is really decent. Also with assault rifle damage, crit hit damage, and crit hit chance. Now, just as I went over as the muzzles and optics, this is what you want to see on any pair of gloves, no matter what pair of gloves or what gear piece of gloves that are out there that you're running. You want whatever weapon type that you are going to use in that build, plus crit hit chance and crit hit damage. And moving on to the holster, 1232 firearms, 1259 stamina, and 1134 in electronics. Now, this would be a whole lot better if that electronics number was up 100 more, and until I find another one, then that's just what I have to deal with, but at least I have 2 good rolls on my firearms and stamina, which is most important when it comes to a DPS build. I got an additional 651 armor on it, and in my performance mod slot, another first aid self-heal. So all in all, since I am low in skill power, if I'm running solo and I need a better heal than what I would get at just running 80k skill power, which is only equivalent to 50k health on a booster shot, at least with all these performance mod slots and first aid self-heals, I'm able to heal myself for a lot more despite the fact of having low skill power. So that extra 23% of first aid self-heal does come in really nice and handy. Now you can mix and match any of these. If you prefer more LMGs or shotguns, then you could substitute these 3 Predator's Mark. And for, let's say, Lone Star, if you prefer LMGs, and don't necessarily like the Lone Star but prefer the Banshee, you can go that way as well. And basically, just like my last video, this is just to demonstrate the diversity of builds that are in the division currently. There's so many things to mix and match. If you don't need the extra skill power and don't have a specialized backpack but yet have a good tenacious mask, a tenacious mask works well here. Or if you need the extra armor buff, you can instead of vigorous, or like what I have here, the Barrett chest piece, if you have not yet found one in Lexington, a good robust chest piece would also work out nicely here. Just for our bouncing and cover, you get a 10% armor boost. But moving on to our main character stat sheet. As you can see, 18.6 total damage on the FAMAS, 17.5% crit hit chance, 70 crit hit damage, under 10 headshot damage. I'm doing 46% enemy armor damage. And my survivability is 199.6k health with only 51% armor mitigation. Now, I prefer being at least 53% or more, but as I went over earlier, it's not just what weapons mods or gear mods you put in. Like as you can see, most every single one of my mods in my gear had at least 271 armor on them. But that's all comes down to the armor rolls on certain gear, such as your chest piece, your backpack, your holster, and your knee pads. The higher you can get is the better. I mean, if you add up all those four, I'm only probably 150 to 250 off of having the max rolls of what I could possibly get on those pieces. So 150 wouldn't really push me over 53, but then it all boils down to is the armor value that's given on the gear once you get it. There are pictures, and you can go to the Division forums on Twitter, all over the Facebook community of Upper Echelon. We have multi-build pictures and show you the main values and the top stats of what armor could possibly be, and what shows you what is a considerable good amount of armor that's already baked into the gear pieces versus ones that may have good main stats on everything but then just have crappy armor rolls on them. So sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't, but the main thing is if you don't, keep on grinding. This is a great game. It's fun to play, and if you get a hold of the right people, such as those members and the core founders of Upper Echelon Gaming, they have just done a wonderful service of creating a community where people can come together, discuss a game such as this, talk about builds, find out what's best, find out from thousands of people and differences of opinion. And it's just an overall great experience when you're this divulged into a game this deep, such as Division, because sometimes it makes you frustrated. You put it down and then it calls to you, pick me up, you one more time and you can get that Barrett LeRay's chest piece. Come on, you can do it. It just calls to you. And yeah, so it's one of those kind of games. I put it down and then, I get frustrated, and 30 minutes later I'm picking it right back up. But this is your boy Relentless. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's been informative to you. And just remember diversity. If you don't have certain pieces to create that 4-piece set that you're looking for, but you have other pieces laying around, just know that all things are viable. If you don't like Predator's mark as far as for the bleed and think other things more viable, such as a build like this where it's just utilizing a 3-piece where you get the reload speed from the 2-piece and then you get that flat plus 8% bonus damage for using ARs and SMGs, works well. And then if you happen to have a Barrett's chest piece that adds that additional 5% damage to that for you only using one skill, then that works out nice. Now, if I get in a sticky situation and I pulse and I have to pop my heal, then both skills are on cooldown and I immediately get a 10% boost in armor, that comes in great since I'm still working on the armor on this build. But overall, it dishes out a ton of damage, and I got some gameplay for you at the end. But I just wanted to thank you and express to you how much I appreciate your support and your views, and continue to comment on any info that you may have, any suggestions, anything you'd like to see videos done on, whether it be DZ shenanigans, sweaty moments, different challenges you'd like to see us to do, any kind of commercials from the Division that you'd like to see. Anything whatsoever. No question is a dumb question. And also, any suggestion is not a dumb suggestion. Just anything and everything. I love engaging with y'all, talking with y'all, discussing things, and I very much appreciate it. So smash that thumbs up button, and I appreciate you stopping by. If you're not already a sub, if you're a sub, thank you so much. But if you're not a sub, refresh me, check out another video, give it another try. I very much appreciate it. You might like it the second time around and hit that subs button. But this is your boy Relentless. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of gameplay, and we'll see you guys.